Good evening and welcome to the Guilderland Central School District's special meeting of the Board of Education. This is the budget workshop. Can everyone please silence their cell phones and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and I think we're going to start with you, Dan. Is that correct?
All right. Yes. I'm just going to do a budget update. Primarily, the goal of this meeting is to talk about the budget, where we're at, things that you would like to do to see us to incorporate for our meeting on the 31st, which will be a regular board meeting with people in attendance and so on and so forth. So each of you has the budget update packet that I gave in front of you. Looking at slide number 2, you'll see the original draft projection of the budget revenue from the first rendition of the budget that we presented to you last week. It'll show you that the local revenue, intra-fund transfers, and the fund balance and reserves, that amount went down from the year prior, which is what led to the difference. If you looked at our first presentation, why there was a difference that did not add up to the $4.1 million gap. This shows you those numbers so that you can see that. Also, it shows you on the right-hand column what we're projecting for the updated budget that will be presented next week. Local revenue, we're estimating that interest rate goes up due to no change by the Federal Reserve. And from there. On the next page, just to clarify the difference in the draft budget number 1 to what you're going to see here, shows you the difference of $811,000, which from our original presentation, when you do the revenue, you add that number to the roughly $3.3 million, and that gets you to the 4.1. So I know there was a few questions about that. That will clarify it. This slide will also show up on the 31st to clarify it in that public session as well, so people will actually get to see it at that point, but that's the information that will be shared. The next 2 pages deal with the same thing, just showing you the numbers in a different way. The budget number that we have for tonight, which would be the equivalent of slide 5, shows you that there is no difference between the revenue and expenditure slides. That's where we currently are at this point. So obviously, if you decide to make other changes, that will be impacted. But right now, with the numbers that you have, we have expenditures and revenues that will be equal to each other. Just reviewing from an administrative standpoint for the district, there was the elimination of the DEI coordinator. That is still removed from the budget. At our last presentation, there was a director of special programs, a 0.5 FTE, so a half-time that was proposed. We have since removed that as well. On the next page, looking at the ratios for administration and teachers to students in comparison to the Suburban Council for the last year that we had data, which was for the 24-25 school year. Our student to administrator, we came in 9th out of 13th. So that means we're on the lower end. We have more students per administrator is what that means. Someone in the first place position has fewer students per administrator than everybody else behind them. In regard to the students who principal and assistant principal ratios, a ranking number 1 has the fewest students per principal. We are in 10th out of 13. For students to instructional administrators, and comparison, districts have different names for those positions, but doing those same duties. Number 1 has the fewest students per instructional administrator. We are 9th out of 13th. And for student to classroom teacher, number 1 has the fewest number of students per classroom teacher. We ranked 3rd out of 13. On the next slide, staffing comparison. One of the questions we got was, over the last 20 years, what has the change been in administration and teacher numbers over that time period? So you have a column for the 2005-06 and the 25-26 which is the year that we're currently in. For teachers, it went from 475 to 493. That's an increase of 3.8%. Teaching assistants, we do our teaching assistants in hours, so we took the total number of hours and divided it. Most of our TA positions are 6-hour positions, so I divided the number by 6, and that's where I got 214 for the 2005-06 year. For the 25-26, it's 126. That's a decrease of 41%. And for administrators, counting district office team, principals, assistant principals, house principals, and IAs. In 2005-06, we had 34 positions. In 25-26, we have 28. That is a decrease of 17.6%. The DEI coordinator position is considered in that 28, and that is marked for elimination this year, just for reference. On the next page is the reserve balances, what we currently had as from our audit. We have workers' comp, unemployment reserve, reserve for retirement for ERS and TRS, and you'll notice those are two of our larger reserve funds. As the conversation continues about potentially making changes to Tier 6, there is a major employer expense with whatever changes they make at Tier 6. So as that conversation evolves over time, there is a potential for a large change in the ERS and TRS if the state does make changes to Tier 6. So it's good that we have some funds in there to help if a change does come about, will help us compensate for that. We have a tax tertiary reserve for people that contest their taxes. That's primarily what's there. The employee benefit and accrued liability, or EBLAR, is the next reserve. So those are contractual items that are due at when somebody separates from us at retirement. Anything that is in their contract that would be paid out at that time can be paid out of that reserve fund. We have a capital reserve that has about $2.1 million in it. And if you look at the audit from last year, that also included $4.5 million that was assigned to the capital fund for the capital project. I took the number out because that transfer has happened. It didn't happen as of June 30th, but it has happened. So that number is more reflective of what's there. So total for all of our reserve accounts has $13,891,611. When we close out the books this year, any interest that those accounts may have accrued will be added into that total, and that will be the new total for next year at this point. Our revenue projection changes from the prior draft. So fund balance, the use of money that we had left over from this year, we had a previous gap of about $1.8 million. That can be filled with fund balance. In our conversation last week, one of the items was you did not want to put a lot of money into reserves in light of the fact that we're considering cuts in different areas across the district. So we took that into account. How can we maintain as many things as we can for this particular year? We believe we have the fund balance to cover that. Additionally, we have funds available at the board discretion. There's an increase in interest to $300,000 because the Federal Reserve did not change interest rates. So we believe that we're more confident in our projection of interest that we'll gain between now and the end of the year in that. Additional fund balance available, we estimate about $200,000. That between the interest and the fund balance, that leaves approximately $500,000 of additional funding for the board to put back into the budget and restore items that may have been cut in our first draft.
Hey Dan, where's the unrestricted fund balance? Isn't the 4%? Where's that in this?
It's not listed with reserves. It's listed separately as unrestricted fund balance.
Is it in here? I just didn't see it.
It's not listed in here.
Okay,
It's not.
It's 4% of the current year's budget.
thank you.
The next one, just some operation and maintenance clarification. I know some of the questions are things that we did or did not cut across the district. So operations and maintenance, as you saw in the budget last week, we did eliminate a utility worker position for a little over $85,000. We did away with the recycling coordinator stipend. In case you're wondering, that is the person that organized the events where they take a number of things from the community and recycle them. that event actually turns into costing us money as opposed to saving money. So with the retirement of that individual, we're retiring the stipend as well at that time. A number of items, due to the efficiency of Mr. Nooney, he got us our request to trim things from his budget before we actually got the other items entered into the budget, so they were not included. So the list that you see there for cafeteria tables, FMS sound system, pathway being paved, insurance deductible, and miscellaneous expenses, he trimmed an additional $150,500 from his budget that never made it to our draft budget last week. Because he was very efficient in knowing his budget and knowing what he could do, he went and did it. So that was never shown to you, but I just want to let you know that he did do his due diligence on his side of the house as well.
Do you know what the insurance deductible was for?
It was to hold money in case we have an insurance claim.
Okay.
All right, on the next area, updated draft, the expenditure budget, it shows you last year's, it shows you our proposed budget of $133,893,690. The difference is about 5.27%, or a little over $6.7 million. Our maximum allowed tax levy is 3.42%. We're recommending to go out at 3.42%. That will allow the maximum levy amount to be $87,221,575. On the last line on that slide, the appropriated fund balance that we put into the budget for you to consider today, $2,015,805 is the total sum of fund balance that we would be using for the budget for next year.
But it wouldn't come out, sorry. I just want to be clear. It wouldn't come out of that 13 million. It would come out,
It does not come out of the 13 million. It comes out of savings that we have through the course of this year, of money in this year's budget that we have not spent. And that's what our projection is.
okay.
So I'm sorry, I misunderstood. There's 13 million currently in the
In reserves.
unrestricted.
No,
In
just
the restricted.
in reserves.
Restricted. So how much approximately is in the unrestricted reserves? I know you said 4%,
So
but
fund balance is the unrestricted, and it would be 4% of this year's budget.
It's like
so
4
4%
million.
of like 112?
127
127 million.
Hundred-
So
million,
it's-
year's-
547, $392.
Okay.
What?
So I just want to highlight, I want to ask some questions for the sake of our viewers. So we still have on the table the cuts that were presented last time, which includes some co-curriculars and like the teaching assistants, right? Okay. So those technically, quote unquote, have not been saved yet or brought back. And so, but we have now $500,000 where we as a board can, what's, for lack of
Fight
a
it
better
out.
word, save some of those things. Yes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, so this includes, so this, I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit, this budget includes all of the proposed cuts that
Cuts.
we talked about here.
Last week, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
2-point-something million dollars of cuts, so we have,
Approximately 2.3.
right, so out of all of this, and using the fund balance, I guess you could say, using the money that we didn't use last year.
Yep.
We have $500,000 to use to restore whatever we want from here, if that's the way that we want to go. Okay.
Could I ask a question before we kind of start to look at the 500,000 and how to allocate it? So, many of us have spent, the last week sort of looking at this, the draft budget. And I have a few questions that I hope you all wouldn't mind me asking, that probably have very simple answers. But I feel like it would be helpful to get those answers first because it could potentially add to the actual revenue portion of this as opposed to, after the fact. So the first is Board of Ed conference budget of 2650. I think if we're asking, you know, our people to cut, I think we should cut.
Totally.
So I think we should
Thunder
sacrifice
Steeler.
$26.50
Yes,
for the
agreed.
Board of Ed conference budget.
Can we make, like, do we need to make a motion for that? Or like, if that's something we all want to do?
No,
let's
we're
do
just
it.
in a workshop,
Okay.
so.
So I support that fully.
Same.
There's more.
Awesome.
So, and this was actually something I discussed with Kim earlier today, but, and there might be a simple answer to this, but there seems to be in-district transport for a number of positions, including some administrators. You know, I wrote down the pages, but not necessarily the
So
positions,
the
but
four-
it's
are they
almost
405
$10,000.
codes?
I'm sorry, what?
Do they have 405 in them?
Yes.
They four- So that is a new code, so there's going to be a show with no history of spending. We currently use 406 codes, budget codes, for all of our mileage and travel reimbursement. But for being able to track what we spend, we're starting next year splitting it. So in-district mileage, which is reimbursed in almost every employment contract, is going to be paid for with the 405 code. And then the 406 code is going to cover out-of-district travel for conferences, events, those kinds of things. So we'll be able to track better what goes into mileage. So those are the 405 codes.
Okay.
And that's based on what we are estimating we spent this year on in-district mileage, but because it's not separately coded, it's an estimate.
Okay, because some of them are higher than others.
Some of them are higher than those because those positions do a lot more driving in districts.
Okay.
Like technology, IT goes frequently between buildings. There are different, administrators go between buildings frequently.
Okay. My next question was on page 38, transportation advertising, and it's budgeted for 5,000. What is transportation advertising?
I will have to get back to you on that, what that is used for.
Okay. Because it looks like there wasn't anything, it's new with the 25-26 budget. So anyway, that would be potentially $5,000. And then, my last one, but it's multi-steps. So page 7, operations of the plant. What is advertising postage, like there's $7,650 for advertising, postage, travel, and conferences.
I can get you specifics, but those codes are very broadly used for not just mailings or required things that we have to print, but for broader communication services, but I can get you details on what we spend.
Okay,
that
just
on.
because again, that's a big jump from 2 years, like there was a budget of like $100 to $700, $800 the 3 previous years. And now it's $76.50. And then, my last one, same page, page 7, other services. It looks like actual costs in 22-23 to 24-25 were around 35,000. And this year's budget is 121,000.
So what item was that? I missed.
Page 7,
Page
operations
7.
of the plant, other services.
Can you say it again? I'm sorry.
I'm-
The
Yep,
number.
page 7,
Almost certain that's the building condition survey. Yes.
the building condition survey.
So every 5 years by law, we have an architect do a thorough examination of every building we have to identify everything that needs work. And then that is the basis for the structure of any capital improvements we make, what SED uses to assess proposed work we do. So it's a big undertaking. So every 5 years, that budget line gets put in there.
Okay,
And it's a
So-
little over 60,000 for the building condition survey itself.
well, so it's 100, but it was 40, you're saying it was like 30,000 the year before, so combined it would be,
Right.
still is a little
So-
bit of an
right.
excess.
Right.
It's worth looking into if we're, you know, really pinching our pennies. So that didn't really save a whole lot in revenue, but it saved us $26.50. So
Yeah.
502,650.
Excellent. Actually, I'd like to piggyback on something you brought up. So, Andrew, on July 2nd, via email, I had asked how much we had in the board's travel conference line, which Rebecca asked you about. At that time, it was $5,650. I'm assuming we've used some of it, but the figure that Rebecca just brought up, is that what is in the budget for next year? And does that include what might be left over from the 5,650? And if not, can you tell us how much is left, if anything, and we can sprinkle that in until next year? Or no?
We are, that's the surplus that we are sprinkling into next year.
Oh,
So
okay.
the 2 million figure is based on what we are looking at, our best accurate projection for June 30th, what we will have spent from our appropriations budget and what we will have earned from our revenue budget. And the net between those, our best estimate is 2 million. If in next year's budget, we eliminate all of those surpluses, we start with a $2 million hole.
Okay,
Does
so
that
there's
make-
no way to beef up the number, the figure that I wanted to see if maybe we had a little extra somewhere. Okay. Thank you. So,
I guess I would say it's a bigger thing. Balancing line item reductions, I would recommend reducing the fund balance carryover, at least partially, because we don't want to end up in a hole next year from that, if that makes sense.
I think most of us would see the expenditure of the fund balance as a temporary to get us from A to B, and then have other things in place, which I think you're going to hear from other board members about ideas. But so, okay, how do we want to do this? I sort of feel like last time we were all over the place, and maybe if it's okay with everyone, we can just go around the table. You can ask your questions, you can give your opinions, but that way it's like orderly. And it's okay if someone steals your thunder, you can still repeat yourself. Is everybody okay with that? All right, so we'll start with you, Tara.
Oh.
Do you not
please-
want to go first?
Please, no. 'cause
Okay, oh my
I got a lot
gosh.
of questions in my
I'm
head
not
I'm
used
trying
to
to
that.
figure out.
Okay, Nina? Sure. All right.
So I just want to say that thank you for going through and finding other ways that we can address these areas. So that's what I want to say first. Also, for me, the issue of cutting first grade TAs, it doesn't sit with me. I can't, it's hard for me to really come to terms with that. Doing that, cutting TAs is just something that, especially first grade level, I'm struggling with us doing that as a district. So also, of course, the clubs and the teams. So for one, I'm looking for other ideas. Obviously, using the fund balance as a temporary, as Blanca pointed out, method, but, and I do think, though, that looking at it long-term, right, we want to make sure that we're being practical and pragmatic in terms of down the road. So for me, I would like to look at other ways that we could possibly think outside of the box and possibly do some restructuring and how the district organizes from higher level administration and other factors like that how we are able to allocate all of the day-to-day services and ways that the school has to provide for responsibilities. Are there other ways that we could structure things that would better serve to be costly, right, mindful? Because as it's been pointed out, that this is not going to be just a 1 year sort of thing. This is a long-term thing. So that means that maybe the district should have some real ideas as to how we can protect ourselves for future things. So for me, I'm looking at possible discussions of how can we make sure that we can possibly restructure from higher level ways of going about specifically administration, I would say, but in general, just how that could look from the big picture.
Awesome, thank you.
I think our community was very, very clear that they do not want these cuts in our schools, that they don't support cutting a lot of these options. And I think we need to start to have a discussion, a very clear discussion of when, if not this year, when we're going to go above the tax cap, because we need to reset our schools. The 2% tax cap has done a disservice to Guilderland. It just doesn't, we can't support the students in the way that our community wants them to based upon the revenues that we have right now. So I agree that we should certainly look at some sort of restructuring plan that we'll love to work with Dan with over the next future years. However, I just need to throw it out there that this is something that's gonna have to happen here at some point. And, well, I'd love to see it happen. I don't know if the community will support it, and I know there's severe consequences if it doesn't pass. We've been scared about that for years. We know what happens. At some point, we need to talk about it and see what that looks like and see if we have support from the community to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll just go now. Is that okay? Just keep it in order. Okay. So I agree with what both of you said, actually. I'm going to sort of restate some of it, but I would like to see us keep, we heard from the community, I would like to see us keep our co-curriculars and athletic teams, and that is 135,000. I think we're breaking a lot of hearts for a relatively low number that still doesn't help fix the budget, that much, to be honest with you. So I would like to keep those. I also feel pretty strongly that we should keep our first grade teaching assistants. And along with the co-curriculars, I have said this a lot, but I really do feel like, although I'm not a teacher, that teachers and nurses are kin, and that we are the frontline workers and are often asked to do extra things. And like, we're the first groups that are asked because, to do things for free or volunteer or to pivot and make these changes. And so I can't stomach that. I can't stomach asking more of our teachers and our, I just can't do that. That won't happen under me. So I won't ever agree to that, even if it were to make it. And I feel like it's a gut punch to our teachers if they're put in a position where they have to either keep, the co-curriculars going, but without a stipend, et cetera. So I'm not in support of those things. And I also believe that we need to stay competitive with our other folks in Suburban Council, and therefore we need to keep the sports. I also see using the fund balance as a temporary fix to get us from point A to point B. My point B is that I believe that we need to streamline admin. I know that will hurt feelings and it goes over like a lead balloon. That's not my intention, but I would really like us to work with our new superintendent, fresh pair of eyes, and to brainstorm with your wonderful team and see if we can restructure things and cut costs. And so the fund balance use would get us from now until a point where we try the new, a streamlined thing. Kelly, I also agree that at some point we will probably have to go over the tax cap, but I would really like to give it a go first. I would like to give us the opportunity to streamline things a little, and then if we have to, then we have that conversation. So that's just me. Take it away, Katie.
I would end up echoing what everyone has said. I do think that I agree with you that at some point we're going to need to look at least presenting the information to the community about the tax cap and seeing, letting, feedback from the community similar to how we accepted feedback on these ideas and see, how they feel about that, having that option. I do see that as something that is coming down the road. I echo with putting freshman sports, the athletic teams, and the co-curriculars, our teaching assistants. One of the things that I wanted to look at again, just as a review that we didn't really get to talk about last time with everything we were talking about, is the impact of the bubble sections at Linwood and Pine Bush, just as a review, to see those numbers again, whether we come to a different conclusion, but or not, I don't know, but we didn't kind of get to touch on that when we were talking last time. And more of a question, I'm still not clear on the OPWDD transition specialist, just that piece of a point of clarification, I guess, on that one. But I agree with what everyone else has already said.
Thank you. And so I'm looking at this right now, and it brings me a lot of joy to see that we're restoring so many things for the students, namely the co-curricular clubs. That's something that really hurt me as like.
We're deciding on
Or
that.
hope to.
No,
Or sorry, yeah, sorry. I should clarify.
Saying we are restoring
Yeah,
things,
but
we're
at least
saying This is a list of items that we could restore with the 500,000, so.
Yeah, sorry, I should have been more
Not every one
clear.
of these is going to be.
That's my bad. But it-
It's okay.
Well, we appreciate your excitement.
You're just
Yes.
saying this,
Yeah,
Please
and you're
keep
just
your
saying this for the
excitement.
first time, yeah.
Priorities of it, yes.
Yeah, it's great to see that we're considering keeping all the co-curricular
There you
clubs,
go.
especially as a student, and I've seen so many of my friends question, like, why were we thinking about getting rid of the clubs? And it's great to see that we're keeping them in now. I honestly want to question whether or not it's a good idea to cancel the yonder pouches that we're getting. And the reason I want to question that is because does anyone know how much we've spent on getting the stations and the pouches so far?
Nothing. We got a grant.
Or for last year as well?
That's not true.
No, we used a one-time fund.
We used,
One-time
we used our
purchase.
solar fund, our
Yep.
solar
Fund
farm
and
money.
stadium.
Yeah, they
Someone
weren't
had-
free.
Yes,
But
someone
we
had
should be
asked
getting a
last
grant.
time
So
about
we-
the state grant.
There was an allocation, it's not a grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
We already got it.
Yeah.
It came in
came.
July, there was a sign up on attestation, so that's why Rachel couldn't answer the question, it wasn't a grant. As our grants
Right,
person, it wasn't a
yeah.
grant, it was, we
Yep.
attest that we had a policy posted in on our website, and they sent us money in one of our aid payments last summer, so.
Gotcha. And so all the future yonder pouches that we would have to buy anew, those are coming out from our pocket?
Yes.
Okay. I still want to question honestly whether or not it's the best idea to do that. Mr. Piscatelli said himself that he's seen the difference in what the yonder pouches do to the community. I know that there's a million ways to get around the yonder pouches, but I think it's less of the yonder pouch itself and more of the environment that it brings with it. I myself, as a student, have seen what it does, and I've talked to people so much more. I've become less reliant on my phone, and I think it's an overall net positive from these yonder pouches. And I feel like for $8,000, it's not something that we should consider cutting in the future because it's something that's only going to make the school better. So I feel like for only $8,000, it's not worth cutting and would honestly just waste the money that even if it wasn't coming out from our direct pocket, it's wasting all the money that was spent on the stations and the pouches and everything else as a whole. So I feel like we should reconsider canceling the yonder pouch purchase. Thank you.
So I just want to reiterate what everyone else has already said. My priorities are the first grade teaching assistants. I think protecting and advocating for our youngest learners, particularly as they're adjusting to elementary school, is pivotal for their long-term educational outcome. So I would be very in favor of restoring the first grade teaching assistants. If we combine, just so that we all have the same numbers, if we combine the first grade teaching assistants with restoring the co-curricular stipends and the athletic teams, that total is 417,000. So it still leaves us under the 502,000 that we have. So those would be my priorities. I did just have a question though, and this may not be appropriate. But I echo Kelly's concern that the tax cap limits districts across the state, particularly in light of inflationary costs. This is why so many school districts, not just Gilderland, are struggling this year and will continue to struggle into the future. Is there any precedent for having two ballot lines, one that would surpass the tax cap and then one that wouldn't, with a list of what would be maintained if we were to surpass the tax cap? This was actually a question that came to me from a community member.
We will look into that.
That is
I've never heard of that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It was a very smart community member who.
Thank you to whomever brought that forward.
Yeah, that's a good question. I like that idea.
And then I love your input, Parth, so much, and I agree with you that the phones have been a really positive social emotional outcome for our students, but I just cannot support spending money when we have all this list of cuts for something that the middle school has done without yonder pouches. So that's just my personal opinion, but.
And I have a question real quick. So the fall play is not part of the co-curriculars? It is, right?
It was split out as a separate line in the presentation, so the numbers that are here are how it was presented in the budget presentation.
So the 135,705 does not include the fall play?
I didn't,
It says total for co-curricular
Yes.
stipends and athletic teams.
that does include the fall play.
Okay, I'm just
Sorry,
making
that
sure.
line, yes.
Okay.
It
All right.
does, oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Meredith, yes.
I mean, I think we're pretty much all on the same page, so there's not much else to say other than I think the TAs for first grade are a necessity. I don't think that they should be on the chopping block at any point, and I think that we have to move on from that because it's the second year in a row that that's been offered as a possible cut. So I think that's something that we need to establish is a necessity. Those are our youngest learners. Kindergarten is not compulsory in New York State, so a lot of kids, their first year is first grade, and a lot of those children do not have any experience in a classroom, and some of them don't know how to use the restroom on their own. So when you have a teacher that has to accommodate those different students, it's nearly impossible to actually teach in that setting. So I think the TAs are an absolute must. And I think that we need to talk about that as a priority in the upcoming years. I agree with everybody that the teams, the co-curricular, and the TAs are, to me, the priorities. I think the initial round of cuts focused very heavily on areas that were kind of the easiest to reduce, but not necessarily those that are the least impactful. And in many cases, those cuts fell directly on student-facing supports and opportunities. I think that if we were talking about utilizing fund balance to get to a balanced budget, then we also have to discuss the future and how we continue to sustain a budget from here on out. And that is the most important thing that I think that has happened out of this budget season. I want to say that that's kind of the silver lining, that we are having those discussions, and that, staff and the board have really been able to talk about those things in a setting, that is very meaningful. And I think it will be really positive for this district overall, because in the future, we're going to be even more prepared. I do think utilizing fund balance this year to get to that balanced budget will enable us in the next year to kind of shuffle things around and figure out how we want to restructure this district to be more fiscally responsible. And I never thought I would say those words, but here I am. I don't know that we will have to discuss the tax cap if we do this properly. I think that we have the chance and the opportunity to really take hard looks and figure out how we want this district to move forward into the future. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. And Kim, it's your turn.
So for the most part, I do agree with the rest of the board. This is a tough situation in general, so none of us really want to be sitting here tonight and going over which cuts we want to do and why, and if we could do it magically, we would just pay for everything and move on. So I do agree with the first grade teaching assistants. I agree that that's something that tends to get cut first. I don't think that people fully realize the importance of having a second body in the classroom at a young age. It's extremely important. Anyone with littles at home knows they're feral. And they need extra help, and it's just necessary. Like Meredith was saying, even just going to the bathroom and getting them set and going outside and doing things, that's a lot of kids for one person, and the help is really needed. This is where I'm gonna kind of vary. I do ideally want to restore co-curriculars in the athletics, but I'm struggling right now because I'm looking at the special education teacher that's being cut at the high school. That seems to, anytime someone retires, attrition comes up, and my fear is how many times are we going to keep saying that and not replacing, because our kids are taking the hit. We, at our core, our job is to educate every student. and we want them to have a well-rounded education. And I have 2 children that have graduated from this district, 2 that are still in. They have taken advantage of co-curriculars, of athletics, of after school, of the majority of things that are on this list. So I genuinely support them. But at the same time, I'm also looking at the 5-6 hour special ed teaching assistants for the high school. And just to give people an idea, those TAs at times are put into a classroom with a teacher where, and I'm just going to give an example, there would be 20 kids in that class and maybe 11 of them have IEPs and 504s. And pulling those TAs is going to make their educational experience even harder. You're just giving them the disadvantage rate off. And you're also, the teacher can't, that's too much for any teacher across the district, no matter how good you are, to have to do. So I really struggle with that because it's just, I've just heard from too many people, having that extra person in there, they're able to pull people aside and catch up and do things. It also comes down sometimes, depending on the situation, a safety issue. And I can say from having a student that had an IEP to having, I guess, gen ed typical, and it's not fair to either student, to any student, because every student in our district deserves a least restrictive environment, not just our kiddos with special needs. And so cutting the TAs and taking just that even bit of help for them as well as the teachers really scares me. And I know that right now people are probably cringing listening to this, because it's not that I am against co-curriculars or athletic teams. I have volunteered for so many things. I have put my money where my mouth is for years, so I don't say this lightly. But really, we can't just leave our kids flailing at both ends. Like that's what it's going to end up being. And I just really think that we need to take a hard look at if we're pulling those, and we're constantly, like, if you even look at our personnel records that are public, it's public knowledge, it's in our board agendas. Most of the time, you'll see like a TA that leaves or someone, it's just in little blips, but it adds up. And I know it's hard to find people, but we need to concentrate on that too, because it doesn't just help, it's not just for special education, it helps everyone in that classroom. So that really, it really concerns me.
Kim, may I ask, if you had to pick between saving some teaching assistants, or, I'm sorry, restoring some teaching assistants, or restoring the 1.0 FTE special education teacher at the high school, which one would you prioritize?
TAs.
Okay, thank you. Were you done? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, for now.
Okay. Peter,
I want to start off, thank you everybody for, in the district, it's worked to get us to this point. It's difficult work. It's our job as a board to ask questions and to ensure that we're helping the district move forward in a positive way. I'd like to make a suggestion that isn't, I see at the bottom of our list here, it says to cancel a Chromebook installment purchase with a dollar figure. I'd like to suggest that maybe just in kindergarten and first grade, that we eliminate the purchase of new materials. We hear time and again that part of the reason that we went to Yonder Pouches and eliminated the use and availability of the cell phones at the secondary level was for brain function and for focus. Similar stuff is happening in the younger ages too. So we should be looking at those types of things as well. And what purpose does having the computers available at those ages actually serve? Based on what we heard last week, I think I calculated about $40,000 or $50,000. So it's not a lot of money, but perhaps that's something. If there's information that we can hear next week about what impact that might have if we did choose just to reduce it in that fashion. We heard last week that in third grade is when testing happens on the computer, so that we need to have it there, and then up through middle school and high school, obviously there's needs there. But I think I'd ask us to take a close look at that and to hear and see if there's anything there that can be done. You know, a lot of the similar concepts around the table, I can support. I do not believe we should go over the tax cap. If we go over the tax cap, what happens to library tax? What happens to town taxes? We have limited, our people have limited resources. And we have to be aware of that. Especially based on conversations that we've had where perhaps there's other places to look. Maybe not in the short term, but perhaps in the long term. We have a new superintendent, as Blanca has mentioned, and possibly looking at different ways to do things. There might be ways to shuffle and adjust and to reduce. But I think we need more than, you know, a 6-week time frame to make some of those decisions and what they may look like. I think that's all I have for right now.
Thank you. Tara?
Okay, so like many of us said, I do support, like, a priority is getting all the teaching assistants back in first grade. And about the special ed teaching assistants, are they being eliminated because the special ed teacher position is being eliminated, or are they a separate line item?
It's a separate line item.
So, okay, so I want to restore all teaching assistants. I know it's it's probably over the 500,000, but that's what, you know, if I had a wish list, that's what I would like. I also support reinstating, you know, the co-curriculars and the athletic teams. I do have a question about the OPWDD. I thought that was something that was already done by a high school teacher, the special ed high school teacher. I mean, I could be wrong about doing the transition. I didn't realize that it wasn't being done in the district. So I'd like some clarification about that. And as far as restoring the fifth grade sections, I know Pine Bush is almost at 27. I mean, they're both high, but Pine Bush is close to 27, and that's just insane. But could we use one of the unassigned positions, at least one of the unassigned positions for that? Is that something we talk about now, unassigned positions, or? No, yes, I don't know.
We tend to reserve the unassigned for what happens between the time we set the budget and September.
Okay.
That's usually when we have that
After
conversation.
the budget passes and all that, okay.
Right, as to where it's assigned, because a number of things will change that will force
Yeah,
an issue for us
sure.
to potentially create a section somewhere.
Yeah. And I'd like to kind of piggyback on what Peter was saying. I know in K-1, they use Chrome tablets, correct? And not Chromebooks, or am I?
They use tablets in K-1 and then transition to Chromebooks.
In grade
2,
2, okay,
3.
because I remember when I took
Because
second.
they start that in grade 2 to prepare
Yeah.
for the third grade.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Third grade assessments.
So is that less expensive than the Chromebooks, the tablets? I'm just wondering, like, price-wise.
I'd have to check with Dave Howell to get all the specifics, and we have to check with him also, because I believe that next year's, and I have to look into it more carefully, but I don't believe that any of the allocations for next year's budget are for K-1,
Okay.
but we have to double check that.
Is it 1-to-1 for K-1?
No,
No.
they're
they share.
transitioning to a
1 to 2.
1 to 2, right,
Yeah.
so shared carts between two
Yeah.
classrooms.
I also agree with Parth about the yonder pouches. I think we need to keep them at least, I'm thinking like at least for 3 years, because I know like in the middle school, they've done a great job at not using cell phones. So those 8th graders are going to be 9th graders, but you still have 10th, 11th, and 12th graders who are still in that kind of spiral of, you know, always being on on their phones. So, you know, if we could just look at it, and also we can find, I don't know, there's got to be somebody out there that can get it for less. I don't know, eBay, I don't know. You know, we could do something to find it less, but I do think that that's a mistake. And I know I'm way over $500,000, but I didn't bother to add up. I'm trying to think of something else. Bubble classes, And as far as the tax cap, I think we need to start the conversation and maybe do a thought exchange. I think when this came into effect under a previous governor, he had no respect for public education. And I think it was one of the ways that he was trying to crush public education. That's my personal opinion, so I'll own that. So, and there are a lot of districts that are struggling, and actually, there've been some news articles about it saying that we got to change the tax cap. And I know that there are groups out there advocating to change it, and I know people don't have, trust me, I know, I get it, as far as like paying taxes. But I do think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and we should start it sooner than later. And I think that's it for me. Oh, I went to one, can we reduce the buses, like after-school buses, from 3 days to 2 days? Would that help save money?
Yeah, how much would that help us save? I think that was one of the questions we emailed you, so it might be.
I actually have it pulled up on here, as I was looking for it.
You
We were
did?
talking about it. It says, according to INHO, the approximate cost for each level's late buses is $425 a day. This is a rough estimate. What else would that impact?
Bro, I need like, how much is that a year?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, hey, I have what I have.
It's also going to impact clubs and activities for
Right.
students, especially elementary, because things are only offered on certain days, so they
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah,
so kids have options.
Can we look into possibly doing it?
And seeing like how much that is?
Yeah, see how much of a savings that would be.
I mean, we're talking about, Rebecca was proposing to just get rid of our $3,000 budget for conferences that we don't use. Why can't we talk about
Right.
if there was something that we could do
Right, 'cause
there that doesn't affect?
So I have a question about that $3,000, because I did go to a NISBA conference last year, and it was really good. Could I still go and pay my own way? Is that okay? Is that allowed?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. That's all I care about. I
We
still
had a-
want to go because it was
We had a
fun.
board member who went every year and paid themselves because
Okay.
they didn't feel right about.
That's good,
Right.
okay.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
With the co-curriculars, last week we heard that a few of them had started talking about ways to self-fund. Some of our clubs have resources in their accounts, right? Is there, I don't know if it's possible, is there a way to have the district guarantee that stipend, but have a revenue share where some of that money comes back? Like, let's say for the fall play, let's say the fall play is reinstated for that amount of money. I can say that amount of money, right? That's here. That's $6,970. Let's say that's reinstated. We put it in there. But the fall play's got to generate revenue in order to cover X percentage of that stipend, or, you know, something of that. Like, is that allowed? Is that something that we could look into? Is that something the clubs have thought about to be able to help both sides of it for those clubs that are able to do that? Like, I would think like the fall play, right? Again, you can't put that all on ticket prices and things of that nature. But if you can help offset it, or you can help a little bit here. I know one of our clubs has, I want to say $25,000 in their account, something a lot like that. And again, I don't know, that's not on our list here, right? But those types of things and those abilities, like if there's somewhere to say, yep, we can help the stipend and the oversight because we value it, but if you're raising these funds here, we got to be able to do this over here kind of agreements. I don't know if that's a good thing, a bad thing. It's just an idea that I had.
So
Maybe it
I
helps
wouldn't
us.
support that. I'm just going to be honest with you, Peter. I wouldn't support that. I feel like for the amount of money it costs, if you look at the big picture, I'm not comfortable putting that strain back on those clubs. They work really, really hard to raise everything. And frankly, at the end of the day, it's the parents and the families and the teachers that end up contributing to that. So I don't feel like we have dibs on anything that anybody has in their accounts. And also, especially because quite frankly, those clubs, those booster clubs, et cetera, they get no help from the district. They're on their own to raise, it's all volunteer. So I personally would not support that, just with all due respect.
I understand. It was an idea. I just thought, if it was something that could help the grand
No, I get
part of
it.
it, because,
Totally.
like I see, I don't know, we just heard about an FMS sound system that was, what was that sound system was that in the
That's really
cafetorium?
bad.
Was that
Yeah.
for the whole
Right
building?
now, we're renting.
Cafetorium.
Cafetorium, right? So like,
It would be great. I don't think we can
no,
afford
but
that, unfortunately, yeah.
I have one thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nina,
No,
yes.
it's okay. So first I want to say, Parth, I agree with you. When it comes to the yonder pouches, I know it shows up as 8,000. But for me, my understanding, other districts that didn't go that route are struggling because the honor system of students just not taking out their phone isn't working, and they're having a higher instance of kids filming other kids in terms of fights and things like that. And it can get, that's something Ms. Piscatelli was speaking about, which was the level of bullying and fighting in the school. So if we are looking at from the perspective of, for the students' benefit, I 100% feel it's for their benefit. I feel like it's helped them socially, emotionally, and actually physically, because it's reduced that kind of altercation. Even though, let's face it, I know a lot of students aren't necessarily putting them in the pouch. They like to pretend they are. So guess what? The phone still stays in the backpack, whether or not it's in the pouch, right? So it's supposed to be in the pouch, and it stays out of sight. And that's really what the terms are. Other districts that didn't go the honor pouch way, they're not staying out of sight. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think that if we switch on that, then what message are we sending the students? It doesn't show commitment or follow through. And that's my concern, right? I want to make sure the students see that this is what we want them to do. That's my concern.
Did you have a question too?
Yep, it's another question. Yep, it's about the, Kim, you talked about the special ed, the TAs, right? So I feel that we want to, I definitely agree with you that the special ed TAs are significant on both levels, right? The upper level as well as lower level, so you raised a good point with that. I don't know to what extent we can even do some, maybe not all, but some if we were to go that route. But I also want to bring up the co-taught Spanish section, because that's an area that I feel like definitely needs as well the assistance. And I think that goes along with the special ed need, that we need to make sure that we're addressing all of that for them. So the other area we had mentioned with athletics, that could there be other areas that could be caught? We were asking about possible extra transportation costs for events that may or may not be essential, if there could be other ways to cut in athletics that could compensate for restoring other areas. So I guess similar to splitting different parts of TAs, could there be some other co-curricular splitting here and there that are not all or none? Can we take another look at that, at areas that can be given to some of the areas that have been on the list?
Did you want to say that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
I thought you were starting, so I was waiting.
I was,
like,
please.
oh, would you like to go?
Nope.
Okay. Similarly, well, with the world languages, it sounds like there's a plan potentially in place for addressing that. And I guess if that was not something that, given the plan, would be, make sense necessarily to restore, I don't know. But I would definitely, because there was enough shared concern among board members at the last meeting, at least have a plan to hear a share out of what that looked like if it's not restored, and moving forward, it almost was, they were gonna see how it went and how their pilot went and what they were going to do next. We'd like to hear, at least plan to hear feedback on that if it's not restored, and how that worked out, just making sure that students, still have access to the same graduation pathways. The tech liaisons, the only thing I was concerned with that, the teacher leaders for tech liaisons, is we're having such extensive conversations about working with students to be, for tech safety and AI and what's coming forward, that I guess I just want to make sure that we're moving students forward to be future ready and also safe at the same time by eliminating some of those tech teacher leader positions, just because it's something we've been focusing on, was the only other thing that I had a question about.
So that's not on the list, though,
Yeah,
is
I
it?
didn't see that on the list here.
It's in the presentation from last time.
From last time, but I didn't, it's not on this, right?
We
I don't
put
see
on
it.
the list everything that there was a board comment or a public
Oh,
comment
okay.
about.
Oh, okay.
But it's not limiting you to that.
Okay.
That was just.
Okay.
Thank
When we talked, the thought was for ease of process, anything that had been discussed, asked about, we put on the list.
$11,700.
Oh, yeah. How much is it?
11,000, we should totally.
$700. It's just something that there were things that we had spent hours talking last time that, I know it's for the non-Title I schools are not, from 2 to 1 per building, and maybe the feedback from the building is that will be a high enough level of support, but just knowing that we're having continued conversations about AI and teaching student safety.
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, I agree, Katie. I didn't even think about that because I
I didn't
didn't
either.
see it on here. I have a question about the reading position at GES. Was that, they want to reduce a 0.5 FTE. Does that have to do because of the support, or is it a budgetary? I can't remember. I don't even know if I asked the elementary principals.
I would have to ask Alan to clarify.
Okay, because I do think, just smaller groups, because reading is so complex, if we can somehow,
Can I
it's
make a
just a
comment
lot.
on that, actually? With the first grade TAs, that's something where, again, I already said it, I would love to restore that. But that said, I think we need to take a look to make sure that it's equitable. I've had some conversations with people at different schools where they get the same cut, but that might put them at a disadvantage if they're not using it, and then maybe half of that time, they can't find someone to fill it, but then there's another school that has half that they're not using, so that could be one position that goes just so we can kind of look and make sure everything is equitable.
Are you talking about the reading?
No, I'm talking about the first grade TAs.
Oh, first grade TAs, okay,
Correct,
okay.
I heard the same feedback, Kim. Thank you for bringing that forward.
So that would be Rachel.
We got to remember too, they were reduced from 3 hours to 2 hours this year, so they're running all over the place.
The TAs, we're talking about the first grade
Yeah.
TAs, okay.
So I just think that's important to remember, and they are very valuable.
Okay, Mayor?
I have a question about the studio and art FTE, the 0.2 FTE. Will there still be art opportunities for students in the middle school in 8th grade? What exactly is this cutting? And then the fall play, the fall play is such a small line item to me. I'm like, it's almost like a filler. I feel like we need to restore that. Cutting the arts is a really
part-
bad
It's
idea.
included with the co-curriculum.
I gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
It
I
is.
asked that too.
Oh, you did, okay.
Where are we, yeah.
All right, and then, but yeah, so the studio and art,
Is that also part of the?
So, no, so what the proposed reduction is for an accelerated section of studio art at 8th grade. So it does not reduce middle school art. It reduces the option for 8th graders to potentially accelerate in art. They can still take studio art when they're freshmen, they just will no longer be able to take it as an 8th grader.
okay. But they still have an option of doing,
There is still
8th grade art
art in
and-
8th grade, yes.
and maybe there's possibility for enrichment within that class?
Well, there's differentiation within all the classes, so that's always a possibility. But enrichment and acceleration
Yeah,
are different, right? So
Of
there's
course.
always that differentiation of acceleration within any of the courses, but to accelerate and get the high school credit would no
Got it.
longer be an option.
okay, thank you.
Can I ask one question about the honor pouches again in terms of the funding? So we used the one-time fee, I think it was around 40,000 or so, if I recall, and then we got, how much from the state for that? Do we know? Around,
I think it was approximately 30,000.
so, and do we know what the cost of the honor pouches that we've paid so far? If we sold 8,000, how that works? I thought it was somewhere around that
It was
cost.
between 65 and 75,000, I believe, but we'd have to look back.
So if the seniors are graduating, right, and they have their pouches, how many of those could possibly be recycled into the group if we seem to have paid for the cost?
I mean, we heard about how disgusting they are.
Yeah.
Some of them might be
Yeah. Mike's-
salvageable.
Mike said he has to repair a ton of them, right? Sorry to
Right.
cut you off,
Nope.
and hygiene reasons.
Right.
So I
That
don't-
was, that was
He
the
kind
key
of-
word right
yeah.
there, hygiene.
Yeah. Well, and he's repairing them.
And he has asked for some to be returned from the seniors when they're done with them,
Yeah.
so we'll see how many of them are usable at that point.
So just to be clear, so the cost was for the 4 years, right? And then we have the next year of the 8,000 is how it's supposed to work.
Right.
Does that also include the price for the unlocking stations as well, or?
Yeah, so my, again, 65 to 75,000, that's my recollection, so we're not, but that does track with about, what, a quarter of that of being about 8,000.
Right.
Right. Would be,
No.
what, well.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
It doesn't,
One of the, because we got it as a package deal, so when we buy the stations, we get the pouches for a little bit less than just the pouches. I believe. But we could, the 8,000 buys the set of pouches for next year. If we end up taking in and reusing a quarter of them, we will know if we want to buy pouches the next year, maybe we don't need to buy the full set.
I feel like it didn't include the stations. Am I wrong? I thought I thought we paid more for the
Cliff built the
stations.
stations.
Cliff built the stations.
No, the
magnet,
magnet
though, you
magnet
gotta-
on locker we
Yeah, you have
bought.
to buy the
That was part of the 65 to 75. I thought it didn't
We bought the
include that.
we bought the magnets. Those are yonder magnets.
But was it part of the 65 to 75,000?
Yes.
Okay,
so it should, yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm still against the yonder
And then
pouches.
we
I'll die on
built,
that hill.
we
We're
built
fine.
those, the mounting stations, our maintenance department built and prototyped and developed.
Okay. I mean, we're talking about people's livelihoods. We're talking about things that can help kids into college. So sorry, yonder pouches for me are like way at the bottom. I'm in rice and beans mode. So,
I
I want to
agree with you,
say, thank
Blanca,
you.
just to give you some perspective monetarily. I mean, each 6-hour TA position is 46,000. So roughly 1 hour of a TA is the cost of the yonder pouch.
Right.
And I just think we need to, maybe we could have some like senior reward if you you maybe don't need your yonder pouch if you do something really good. I don't
I
know.
will
I'm sure we
sanitize
could be
them.
like something creative about it
To save
to
money.
save $8,000. That's just
Agreed.
my personal opinion, but we are not in a position right now to have extras.
Nope.
And yeah, that's just my opinion.
I will
Cool, I
not,
agree with
I
you.
will not help you sanitize them, sorry.
I would say I'll volunteer to sanitize them
I'm just,
or garage sale them. Go ahead.
just one more thought on the under pouches too, is not every student has a device. Is there another mechanism to look at that students register devices? How many students are claiming they don't have a device now? Let's make a data-informed decision about how we're doing things, right? And so, students buy parking permits when they want to park on campus. Is there a similar model there for a yonder pouch, right? And again, yes, I know it's not what we did last year, that we had to do it, right? Because it's state mandate, and now we have a year. How do we use the data to inform a decision?
Good idea. Okay, so based on what everyone has said, Andrew, I might be stealing your thunder, but so if we were to go with the grocery list presented by Tara, because she,
We're over $500,000.
and also sprinkle in, somebody said something at the end. So everything you said, and Kim, I feel like there was like an 11,000
The
somewhere.
tech,
Oh, and you, what you said with the tech, I think that puts us at 662,000 plus. So my question to you is, if the board prioritizes restoring some of these things, and we're over the 500,000, then that difference comes out of the fund balance, correct?
We have to add
It
it.
would have to,
We would have
if
to-
we don't have additional revenue, it would be fund balance.
Right, so it would be fund balance. And so then, it would also help us, though, have a figure for our fabulous new superintendent to work on streamlining for next year. I'm just throwing that out there as a possible idea. It's not perfect. I'm sorry, Dan. I just want to put that out there. So basically, we need to, we all are on the same page about most of these things, to be honest with you, which is fabulous. Do we want to go over the 500,000?
I would like to defer that judgment until we hear what Dan and his team can work on
Yeah.
For next year? Or
for
this
next
year?
week,
For
for
next
next
week,
year,
yeah.
for wherever he needs to
So-
go based on the feedback that he's heard this evening. I think it's really, it's better for us, again, to make an informed decision rather than make those decisions in this moment. I
But
think
I'm asking
also,
if you'd be willing, but, okay.
right, I also think that, you know, we've only talked about a handful of things on this list, and that's not because, well, for me, it's not because I don't value these other
Right,
things.
right.
Right?
Yes,
And it's not
yeah.
just because of, you know, the things that we've heard through email and in questions last week. It's because we're really trying to put the students first, and what does it mean across the district to do that? And these are really difficult decisions, so I really want to kind of just put that out there, that this is the discussion that we're having tonight, and to see
I
where we
mean,
can
yeah,
go.
we're not making any
Right.
decisions tonight, we're brainstorming, and I'm trying to
Right.
get
Right.
a sense so that they know what to work on.
That's,
Meredith?
Well, and I think we also have to recognize that some of these could be broken apart, right? Like restore,
Right.
this line item, restore 5 6-hour special education teaching assistants.
restore
We don't have to restore 5, we could restore 2 or 3.
Right.
Right? And some of these FTEs, we could talk about if some of them could be broken out, right? So it's not an all or nothing, it's also, this is not actually a comprehensive list because you
Yeah.
can break these down further.
But, so it looks like our priorities for Dan and your team are as follows, right? Restore the teaching assistants
In first grade.
and in first grade.
And special
And,
education.
and
I was just gonna go in chronological, or like in order. Okay, yeah, so restore the first grade teaching assistants, restore the athletic teams and co-curriculars for the 135. Don't forget to take in the sprinkle that Rebecca found tonight. Don't forget to take that into account. Restore the special education teaching assistants. And then, you said?
Tech.
The tech. It sounded like those were the priorities, like based on how many people brought those up when they were speaking.
I do have a question about the one FTE for special education. Remember last year, we did some shuffling with like because the middle school had more of a need? Is that the same here, or are those middle school students moving up to the high school? How are they going to be affected by that shuffling, that change?
So this is a retirement from the high school special education department. And the idea at this point would be to reallocate existing staff to cover some of what that position currently does. There would be a reduction potentially in co-taught sections. Right now, that position is co-taught science. I do not know where that reduction would take place. We'd have to look at what the staffing looked like and what the student need is, which is something we're still developing as we do scheduling for next year. So it would be partially covered, but of course, you're going to have to, when you shuffle, something is going to have to be reduced.
How did last year's shuffling work out with the middle school getting an extra, not an extra, but another FTE?
So that was a different scenario that was in our CSP, which is, it's a different program, and that was based completely on student need. As far as effectiveness, I'm not sure what metric you're asking for specifically, but I can look
Your
into what
opinion.
feedback can come from that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, it puts more students with IEPs in a room. Like
Okay.
there are more students in a class, so there's less help. Like it really, because if they have to reallocate these students somewhere, a lot of times students have co-teaching in their IEPs. So they have to go somewhere else, so it is going to increase the class size of those students in some classes.
And where that might be would depend on, again, student needs. So we do try to do our best to keep that proportion at 40% or lower as much as we can within those quotas. So that's the metric we try to use.
Thank you.
So,
Any closing, Peter and Nina?
yeah, I just want to say, I'm sorry, can we get that information though about the co-taught Spanish and the new pilot program and how that's going to play out?
Yeah, I'll ask
Yeah,
Lauren.
maybe you
to-
guys can come back to us with some options. Sorry, Andy. My bad.
Options as far as what, Blanca? Can
So
you-
like scenario one, we gave you the list of priorities, please don't make me say it again. But, you know, keeping those, and then like option B, what it would look like if we kept to the special ed teacher or the, what was it? The co-taught. No, it was just a special ed teacher.
Yeah, it wasn't scenarios related to the question before, these scenarios. I see where
Right.
you were following. You were
Sorry.
going for,
Gotcha.
I was
Thank you.
following you, yeah.
I was a step ahead, my bad. Did you have something?
Peter, that was, yeah.
Just a quick question. As we continue to move through the process, if there's anything that, as a board, we need to be concerned about with where we are with the budget and moving forward with Portrait of a Graduate or things that, you know, hey, watch out for this down the line. I think if those things come up, it'd be good to share those now to hopefully keep them on our radar or whatever, just because that is stuff that we need to be worried about too.
I do have one final comment.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. First of all, what I was going to say before I spoke into the mic was I apologize to people that I gave the wrong information about the yonder pouches publicly. Andrew, I do have a question. You probably can't answer it right now. So 9 out of 10, the state budget's going to be late. And I know that they are really pushing to have it closed up and voted by the 13th. If, let's say, and it's a big if, and I don't want to put anything within this, but let's say the numbers look a little bit better for us, and it's before we vote on our budget. What would be our options? Because I know that if we have to vote on a budget without a final state budget coming through, then let's say we get like 200,000 extra in our budget, we can't add that, correct?
Well, your sequence, if,
Yeah, I was all
Once-
over.
if it's prior to the deadline for adopting a budget, and we either update our resolution, or if it comes before we adopt the budget, the two scenarios would be either additional spending or reducing the amount of fund balance used in the budget.
Right.
So at least we've given them an idea, right, of like our priorities. So we may very well, if that were to happen, that which would be fabulous, then maybe we could add back something, restore. Are you waving or do you love me? What
asking
is
a
this?
question.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, were you done?
Yes.
Okay. With the full-time, with the FTEs that we have, waiting to see what things look like towards the start of the school year, if we are at the high school looking at that co-taught programs and finding that with the master schedule and student the available full-time FTEs, if we find that we need a special ed teacher at the high schools for the co-taught, once final schedule and final IEPs are finalized.
You mean the unassigned? Is that,
This new yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to, maybe?
It could, yeah.
Right, I mean,
Potentially,
there's always, could
potentially
be
it
pulled
could,
from
yep.
that if, as we're doing student schedules and we find we need to support them.
Right.
The high school.
Don't worry, pencils down, I'm not taking notes on that.
What if we only do two? Don't we have three?
We have
Isn't-
three.
Right, so what if we only do
Well,
two and then keep?
There's a whole variety of things that could come up between now and then of really why
We
there.
historically use them.
We do?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right.
We've had 5 for many years.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do.
And they don't
Okay.
always go, 1.0 allocated
Right.
to something that was
Yes.
reduced. Sometimes it's things like, we get into the schedule and we realize we need support in just one small area, so it goes to a 0.2 or a 0.3. So it's really hard to predict how they'll be used, because it really is all dictated by student need as we go through the process.
Gotcha.
And that's why we also try to put things that we know we will be using in the budget itself. So if there's something that we used unassigned on in the past, in a current year, and we want to keep that, we don't keep it in unassigned. We propose it for the budget, and if it gets added, then that unassigned is available for the next flexible need in the following year.
Can you still, Dan or Andrew, get back to us on how much we could potentially save if we were to reduce one of the budget, or one of the after-school periods to 2 instead of 3? And I feel like we've done that at some point. Like, was there a time period where we had reduced that? I feel like there was, but maybe it was when I was a kid, I don't remember. And there's 10 to 12 activity periods a month, so we would be reducing that by what, a third? Or,
So if there's 10 to 12 a month, you'd be losing a
Right.
couple of them.
okay, so if you could just get back to us with those numbers that we can consider.
We can also share the impact from
Thank you.
music intramurals.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what we
that's
need
what
to know.
it,
That's
right.
that's
it
the
would-
impact we need to know.
I was
Never
just
mind, that's what
thinking
you
about
said,
that.
right, Dan? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
never mind, I'm not interested, anyways? Never mind, take that off your to-do list.
Well,
Yeah, I was just thinking that with the elementary schools especially.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make
music.
sense to
we
save the
cram everything,
co-curriculars
yeah.
and then like take away their transportation. Okay, never mind. Are we good? I feel like this was really productive.
Could we also ask that question about 2 lines on the ballot about the tax cap or not?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll have the attorney weigh in on that one.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Do we need
Maybe.
a motion to end?
Sorry, I have another
No,
question.
yeah, Peter, go
Sorry,
ahead.
and I don't mean to complicate things, I just
okay.
need it for information. So the .2 FTE PE and the .2 FTE music at the high school, what is that, like, what is that reduction? Like, is it elective courses? Is it like an individual is teaching extra stuff? Like, I don't know how much detail we can go into here, but like, what is that?
So I can't speak to exact specifics. I can give you an idea of when we're making a small reduction like that. It's
Yeah.
typically the result will either be eliminating an elective or larger class size. So in the case of PE, if we've been scheduling slightly smaller classes, we might reduce by one section, or if there's, I know there's PE electives. I don't know, Regan, if you know any more specifics about this one in particular.
I do. The P.2 cut, I believe, is dance styles and choreography.
That also counts as art credit?
That was a good question, Peter.
I just throw that somewhere on the list.
Yeah, and
I don't know what the usage is for it. I don't know. It's not, I just put it on there for consideration. I'm not saying
Yeah.
like we got to add it back in or not, but if it's a course that's meeting dual,
yeah,
right, dual purposes, and it's a course that students are choosing, again, numbers, things like that would be.
Right, we'd need to look at
Yeah.
enrollment.
Yeah,
Enrollment
for
is an
sure.
important factor in that as well.
could you do the same for the music teacher? And is it the same scenario though, like reducing an elective?
I believe that one is the music technology, one of the electives at the high school.
Bob just texted me, and that's what it is.
Thank you, Bob. Okay,
Thanks,
so,
Bob.
yeah, can we keep that on the list, or, okay, thank you.
Well,
Thanks,
what
Peter.
about
That
the
was really
point
good.
4 of the art teacher? What was that? Since we're going through them all.
Is Bob texting you again?
He is.
Can he text you?
It's not there yet, though.
Give us a moment.
Yeah, we got the ball.
Answer coming.
We have another,
There's 3
we're
dots.
doing this again next week. Is that what next
Yeah.
Tuesday is also?
No.
We added this in from,
board
this
meeting.
this is not your regularly
Yeah, this is
scheduled.
an extra.
This is an extra.
The work you did tonight will inform
Yep.
what we bring to you on Tuesday.
Yep.
In
Yep.
the budget presentation, which I recommend we do that first, and then we do public comment after.
Excellent.
I just want to say one more thing. That's what happened. I want to say that I agree that when it comes to the special ed and those programs, it should supersede a yonder pouch.
Oh my God.
And I think, well, hold on, I'm just going to say this. As long as we have a good system that we can put in place, right?
We have to, we're
That's-
required to.
We're required to, but like I said, there's other districts that have tried different options that haven't worked well. So because I give the school district such high credit, and Ms. Piscatelli such high credit, and the students, and Parth, the fact that your opinion matters more than all of us right now because you've lived it, right? So to your credit and to the district, I just want to congratulate everybody for doing a great job with this mandate that not everybody's done a good job with. So maybe you've set that precedent for the rest of the students, the incoming freshmen, and so I just want to, if it means I need to bow out on that a little bit, I will, for the sake of what we are saying here, because it's for the kids. And Portrait of the Graduate, Peter, does talk about student engagement, right? And that's why I am such a proponent for all of this. It is engagement, right? And we want to make our students feel that they're seen and heard. So as long as we have a good system that's we can point to and utilize, then I could get behind that.
That goes to the future plan. We can't just eliminate a line item and not have a plan.
Right.
It's a plan. This is part of like
Right,
a
but we-
process here.
Yeah.
We've bought into this process and that's our process. So if we're going to eliminate
We have.
$10,000, then we need to have a new 5 to 10 year plan of how we're going
We
to have the
have to, we're
kids.
required to. Nobody's saying.
I
we're not
know,
going
I'm
to
just
have a
saying
plan.
that
And
we should probably have that plan in place before we go and
We
change
actually
stuff.
did have it in place, and it did work for 2 years at the middle school. So there are other things we can do. And nobody here is saying, we are just going to let everybody have a free-for-all and not use the gander pouches. And so I would like to speak for the students who don't think that the gander pouches are necessary and never did. So thank you, Parth. Thank you, Nina. I disagree, and like I said, I will die on that hill. I don't have $8,000 to spend on a gander pouch, on any gander pouches. Anybody else?
I have one more, since we're
ahead.
just adding things back. So restoring the St. Madeleine Sophie 0.3 FTE special ed teacher. I personally see a lot of preschoolers really struggle with the CPSE process. Is there any other CPSE position for our preschool population, or would this be the CPSE position?
That's not actually for our CPSE. It's for students that we support at St. Madeleine Sophie in K through 8.
Okay, so we do have CPSE, but it's not like that's being eliminated at all. Like, it's just this position.
That's a good question. I didn't even.
Yeah, so it would be, it's the position that we fund to support our K-8 students that attend St. Madeleine Sophie, that we are responsible for providing special education services for. So it doesn't affect CPSE at all,
I see.
but it would, it has to come from our special education staffing. So it affects our special education staffing, just not our CPSE staffing.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally
Okay.
does. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just trying to make sure I'm explaining it right.
Yeah, so it's more for the whole elementary level and not
Yes.
so much for the preschool.
Correct.
Okay.
I have one more distinction here, curious about, for the athletic teams, the Mod 9 teams. Do we know, so if we were to eliminate a Mod 9 team, we have JV, varsity, and modified. So this is the fourth team that we have. And I'm just wondering, do all districts have a Mod 9 team? And it affects 40 kids, my son being one of them. I'm just saying that's what he's going to be trying out for next year. And it would be terrible not to have that, but I just kind of like make that distinction that we haven't picked on any kind of sports at all here. However, we have art at 3 different levels that are looking at a decrease in and music and everything else. So I just want to I'm curious if do all schools in our suburban district have, or council have the Mod 9, because sometimes to play against. Just curious how we stack up compared to other schools with having 4 athletic teams for sport.
So I'm out of shape.
Yeah, please. I forgot that. I keep on forgetting that you're the
Not physically, but
athletic guy.
athletic director.
Previous
wise.
athletic.
So I don't have the current numbers, but no, not everyone has a 4th level, depending on the sport in that particular district. Obviously, the bigger schools tend to, the 3 S's, Saratoga, Shen, and Shaker. But Dave would have the exact numbers on who plays what sport and how many levels they have.
It's just a,
Sorry, Kelly,
Yeah.
because you brought this topic up, one of the things that I asked Dave last week was, what are other options out there? And he said there's about 25% of schedules that are non-conference games. Is there any savings in that? Like if the restoring of the Mod 9 comes back, but it means that across the board, we have to play one less non-conference game because that saves travel and officials and whatever else, then those are the types of things, just like when we're looking at,
That's
is it
what I was
all
saying
the
before.
6-hour TAs or is it, right? Those are the types of things that help inform decisions, I think.
So public high school sets the maximum number of contests per sport. throughout
Right.
all the sports. And so, yes, but depending on if it was an away game, right? Away games have transportation attached to it. Home games have officials attached to it. Contractually, the coaching rubric has number of contests to it. So one contest, I'd have to look. I don't think that's going to make a difference, but I can't tell you for sure. That's obviously one less opportunity for student athletes to compete in. If you like Dave to bring options for next week, we can certainly ask him to do that.
I think data that is informed to inform the decision is hopefully helpful. So, yes, please,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you also just said max number of games.
Yeah,
So they also
max.
set minimum?
They don't set minimum. I'll give you, for instance, in the spring, at the modified level, because of the weather in the spring and the field conditions occasionally when it does rain a ton at the middle school, there are typically a game or two before the start of June that we don't get in.
Right.
We try not to go into June with contests because we got tests coming up and such, so especially at the modified level. So sometimes there is savings that just happens as a result of the weather. Some years are better and you play every single game that's rare in the spring and our weather here. But there isn't a minimum number of games. There's only a maximum number that's set by New York State Public High School.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, this may not be a very popular question, but rather than having to eliminate funding, is it possible to reduce the stipend at all? I don't know if that's something I want to go down that path because it's contractual as well, as I understand that. But is that ever something that could be considered as a temporary thing or even a time for like a limited time period? Rather than,
So the athletic team reductions would save us, or so, it was 51,138. It just seems like that's not that much when you look at the big scale of the budget. And considering how many people are involved, so it's, right, it's Mod 9 boys and girls soccer, Mod 9 girls basketball, Mod 9 girls softball, and more basketball, football, and baseball. I guess I'm concerned that what this is going to do, because our other levels of sports are so competitive in suburban council, is that it's going to leave folks in a situation where the kids who can afford to play the club sports are still going to be practicing that ninth grade year. And then they're going to be up against the kids whose parents couldn't afford to do the club sports. I mean, Katie and I have been like bled dry doing these extra sports things. So I can't imagine taking away an opportunity for district parents and students to avoid having to incur that cost, when at the end of the day, it's 51,000 in such a big
Yeah,
budget. So anyways,
I agree.
if you want that information, go for it. I won't support that, but
And
I'm 1 of 9.
Yeah,
so.
and as far as the stipend, I know they're contractual, and I believe that the stipend increases with time, they go up steps, right? Like similarly, and I just would, if coaches are on a higher step, it's because they've made a repeat commitment, and it is a significant commitment, so I would support that we maintain their stipend for, what it is, if we're going to continue to support the sport.
ideally, yeah, but I'm just saying if we're looking to find areas, I don't want to remove the teams, the opportunities for the students, so just a suggestion of another possible way, but if it's not an option, that's it.
I mean, to Peter's point, it doesn't hurt to have the information, but I know I wouldn't support it.
Why take out the middle one, though? Like, why not just say, because then you go from modified in middle school to mod 9 and then to the high school. If you're going to, like, why don't, we still have a modified team, just forget it.
You can't play it as a ninth grader, though.
Yeah.
Seventh, eighth mod, right? You can't play it as a ninth grader,
Some
correct?
ninth graders.
Never mind.
So the mod 9 can be 7th, 8th, or 9th graders.
Yes.
Mod 7, 8 is only 7, 8.
So it's a ability for a ninth grader who didn't make the JV team to play
Correct.
still?
Right. And it's 7 teams. I mean, that's
I'm
substantial.
just saying, I'm just curious of the process of
Yeah.
why that is there. And I don't think, and that's the only sports. Again, this is not an extensive list. I don't have the full list, so. Trying to spread the,
It's not the
when
only.
we're talking about, teachers and art teachers and PE teachers and,
Yeah, no, I get
you know,
it.
everything.
There was like structural change, like the tennis thing. I thought I saw something
I
else.
don't know what a
sporty.
tennis windscreen is. This is the first time I've seen that.
I think it's those, isn't it?
Can I
those
just
things?
ask also about the electives that are that are being looked at? You said the math, the music is a music tech course?
Yes.
Yes.
So is that a course that a lot of students still need as far as their graduation and that sort of thing?
It's an option for students to get their music credit. It's not the only option, but it is an option.
Yeah, if you could get us numbers, like, I think like you're doing with the other class, right? Like how many kids take it, kind of thing.
I can get you enrollment numbers.
Thank you.
The art would affect studio in photography 1, studio in photography 2, and a studio in creative
Oh,
crafts.
that seems like a lot of classes. Okay.
So that, all those classes for .4 FTE?
Well, it's a sections of each of those classes.
I see, okay.
So I can get you numbers of sections and enrollment from this year, if that
Okay.
would be helpful.
But the class would not be eliminated?
I would have to look at how many sections we offer and how many sections are proposed to be reduced.
Okay.
We can't do everything, right? We can't do everything. And getting information, like part of the reason why this conversation continues is to get the information, because we're sitting here as board members going, well, what is this? What is that?
Right.
What is this? What is
Yeah.
that? Right? And so I think that's why I keep asking questions, because I believe that if as a district, remember, we started way back with cut 5%, right? If as a district, we can look across the board and say, okay, we're going to reduce this way so that we can keep these things, but we take a little bit away and we can still maintain the program, or we can still maintain this, or we can still maintain that, and not tremendously impact the student experience. That's the thing. Every decision we make eventually could impact students. We're a school, like
Right.
that's the nature of it.
I think that, back to the music tech though, I think it is an elective that students do need, right? Because I think it does satisfy different requirements for certain kids.
Well, students use different electives to fulfill different requirements, but there's other ways they can get those requirements. So we wouldn't cut a class that's the only way students can get that requirement, because then we'd be keeping them from being able to graduate. So do people use it for fulfilling those requirements? Yes, I'm sure some do. There's other options.
But I think that for some
Yeah.
students who are seniors, for example, they may not have that option if we're cutting it now, because they may be part of a sequence. It sounds like if it's covering two different departments, that it might be a critical course for some students.
I can check and see if there's any students in that
That's a good question.
situation. I am relatively sure that that's already been considered in the proposal of this cut, but I can double check for you.
All right, thank you.
At one point in time, we'd heard the potential for, Meredith, you worded it beautifully, like retirement as a possibility for some folks.
Oh, the incentives?
I just wanted to circle back and see if you wanted to mention that now, but if you don't want to, that's fine. If you don't want to, it's okay. Tara, do you?
I can.
Okay. Just so the public knows that we're talking about these things, right?
I said that the first thing that municipalities do when they're faced with a budget shortfall is offer early retirement, usually 2 years within, if you meet the age requirements and you're within 2 years of the time requirement. So that was offered as a solution for some attrition issues.
Okay.
But it doesn't seem like that's really an option.
I was going to say, but
Well, for New York State retirement, you have to be 55 and 30 years in, if you're tier 4. So if there are people that fit that and they want to retire now, I don't know if we can reopen, extend the, whatever it is, the
MOU, or we can do
a
an
deadline
MOU.
or
Sick
something.
leave buyout. You're talking about the sick leave buyout?
Yeah, for the sick leave buyout.
So if that is an option, then that would be great to consider.
Leave no stone unturned.
Right. All right, I think we're good. Do we need a motion to end this?
I think so.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, can I get a motion?
Sure.
Kelly, second, Katie. Okay, all in favor? 9-0. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.